MatSu Valley is one of the most interesting markets to be watching right now in Alaska because I think it has the one thing that sets it apart from every other market in the entire industry up here in Alaska as far as the trends go. My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today we're going to be talking about the MatSu Valley, looking at the residential, the condo, and the multifamily market for the entire real estate market here. Before we get started though, do make sure you give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and let's go and get into today's video. Now, the first thing that we're going to see is the big thing that sets the MatSu Valley apart from all the other markets is we're actually seeing more inventory, more houses available on the market now than we did this time last year. This time last year, we had about 390 properties that were available on the market. That was pretty low. And now we're sitting at about 450, which is still low. Okay, but we are starting to see that the trend since April is that we have more properties available on the market than we did the previous year at the same time. And this kind of peaked right around like last month, right around the August or July timeframe, where there was about 510, 520 homes. And now the trend is that it's starting to go back down to about 450 or so, which is more of a seasonal trend. But the thing that really stands out to me is, yes, we are starting to see more inventory available on the market than we did this time last year, which that's the only market so far in Alaska that we've seen that. Now, the next thing that we're seeing is the number of properties that actually sold this time last year was about 250, and now it's about 160. So starting to see more inventory. Total number of properties that have actually sold has started to get pulled back a little bit. I suspect that probably has something to do with interest rates here. So with that being said, you might expect to see a big shift in the average sold price. Are we seeing just a cratering right now because we're seeing, the inventory's going up, interest rates are going up? So that means like the sellers are obviously going to have to start doing these big crazy sales. Well, let's take a look here and see what the numbers actually show for the average sold price. Well, what we're seeing for the average sold price is it is in fact not going back, and it is in fact increasing by about 10% from where we were the year before. But, before we get too excited though, for those of you who are sellers, let's also keep in mind the rate at which it was increasing last year was 15%. So we're starting to see a bit of a pulling back at the rate that it's increasing, but the 10% is still being pretty aggressive. That means that this time last year, the average sold price was sitting right at about $362,000, and now we're sitting at about $387,000. So the rate at which it's increasing is still pretty quick. And I mean, that's still pretty good if you're selling in this area. And it's good for you as a buyer too, by the way, because once you buy something, it's better to know that you're in an area where that asset is going to increase in value instead of going the opposite direction. So that's big. What we are starting to see on the residential side is we're starting to see a kind of a pulling back of the demand that people have for properties here in this area. As an example, there's about 1.8 months worth of inventory this year, whereas last year was about 1.5. Now, what that means is if everybody takes their houses off the market at the same time, you will have 1.8 months worth of inventory now, and then it was 1.5. So it's a good indicator of what the demand is. So there's less demand than what there, this year than there was last year, but there's average sold price is still going up because there's just so few options that are available out there. I expect one other variable, one factor that's kind of contributing to the residential side is we are seeing more and more new construction homes that are coming onto the market right now, and obviously those are going to be in the higher end, so we're going to see those kind of impacting these average sold price statistics. But across the board, we are seeing average sold price for properties across the board in the MatSu Valley is going up. The next thing that we're going to look at is what's going on in the condo market. Now, in the condo market, we see that this time last year, there were 8 condos available on the market. This year, there are 2. So kind of following the same trend as residential side, but just fewer properties to begin with. The next thing we're seeing is the number of condos that have actually sold has decreased from 9 the year before to 2 this year. So kind of following the same pattern as we saw on the active inventory side. Now, I'm going to give you these next stats. Let's not read into it more than we should. So the increase for the average sold price for condos is increased by over 30%. And average sold price this time last year was about $191,000. And this year it's about $250,000. So yeah, smaller sample size though. So that's going to throw everything off. But yes, the average price for condos in the MatSu Valley has increased as everything else has. Let's take a break here real quick. For those of you who have been watching for a little bit, you do know that I host a podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, in which I interview people who have recently moved up here and people who are of interest in the state, like economists, and people who are on special boards talking about what's happening and things that are going to be related to the real estate industry moving forward. So do make sure you go check that out. Link for that is going to be in the description section down below. We have a new episode every 2 weeks, and definitely make sure you go check that out or you'll be missing out. Now let's go and finish up today's market update looking at the multifamily market. Like the residential market, we are in fact seeing an increase of inventory for properties in the multifamily sector. This time last year, there was about 29 multifamily properties available. Now there are 34. So I kind of suspect we're starting to see more new construction multifamily properties as more and more people are moving out from Anchorage to the MatSu Valley. And we're just trying to accommodate as many of those as we can. That and a lot of these properties are going to cash flow pretty well right now, just because the rents are going up and they are projected to continue going up because that's what they do during a time of inflation. Now, the next thing that we see is the number of multifamily properties that have actually closed has increased. This time last year, it was about 6, and now we're seeing about 10 properties that have sold for multifamily despite the inventory being so small and compressed. So really what that means to me is we have a lot of people who are wanting to buy multifamily properties here in the MatSu Valley, and even though the inventory is kind of sparse, a little thin, they're still jumping in, they're still trying to acquire as many of these multifamily properties as they can, because the rents are only projected to be going up in the near future. Now, one thing to keep in mind though is just because it's a multifamily property does not necessarily mean that it's a good option to jump into, even with the rents going up, because right now, as people have been landlords in Alaska for a while now, rents can go up and rents can go down, okay? So just because you buy a property at a certain amount and it balances out and does okay right now, you need to make sure that if things go backwards, like if the rents go down, then it's still going to be a good option for you to purchase. This cuts both ways, and the rental market is going to be, it's going to go up and it's going to go down a lot faster than what you have on the value of properties, which if you're have a multifamily property, that's going to impact what your property is actually going to be worth a lot more than what's going on natural appreciation, like as opposed to what you would see on the residential market, where it's going to appreciate at a much faster rate. So that's what we're seeing there. Let's go and take a look at the average sold price for multifamilies though and see what that's showing us. Not surprisingly, we are in fact seeing the average sold price for multifamily properties has gone up, well, almost exactly $30,000. It went from about $463,000 this time last year to about $492,000 this year. So that's a pretty sizable increase. Again, the value of a multifamily property is tied more to the rental income. And I've seen a lot of properties lately where they don't cash flow. So if you're looking to acquire some kind of a multifamily property, do make sure you reach out to a realtor who knows investments and can tell you, okay, well, this one makes sense because the numbers actually balance out. And there are others where it's like, if you pay that price, it's just going to be a big house with a lot of roommates. So I sure hope this has been useful for you. If it has, give this video a like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.